We are live. Take it away.
This is Literary Roadhouse, one short story once a week, and I'm Sean.
I'm Andy.
And I'm Anais. And this week we're joined by Sean McMann, the author of the Restarter series, a story about life, death, tequila, and time travel set amidst the backdrop of Norfolk, England. To follow his work or just to reach out and say hey, you can find him on Twitter, Instagram, via his Facebook page, or his website, restarterlodge.com. Links are provided in the show notes. Welcome, Sean.
Hello, it's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me, guys.
So excited to have you on. I've been sort of following your Twitter, and I'm like, this guy's cool.
No, stop. I was following you too, and I was like, you guys are cool. I was so chuffed when you said, hey, do you want to come on? I was like, okay.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the Restarter series?
Yeah, okay. It started about a year ago, was when I first published book one. And it's a story about friendship and very ordinary people who are kind of chucked into extraordinary situations. And I wanted to try and explore the humor in that of like a big action movie scenario, but people like you and I who had seen the movies like to deal with them, but weren't necessarily emotionally equipped in the real world to deal with those sort of problems and stuff. So, yeah.
Cool. And what's that line about tequila?
Oh yeah, it's just one of the running jokes is that they try and do all of these really serious things because it's a time travel adventure, and even sort of when the big things happen, they'll still find time to just have a shot of tequila and be like, whew, let's just take stock for a moment and do this thing. And one of my editors was, would they really drink before like they have these things called time heists where they try and sort of solve a massive time problem, and she was like, would they drink before a time? And I was like, yeah, they totally would. They're those kind of people, you know.
So what inspired you to start on this series?
It was based on, it was loosely based on a true story. I can't put that on the cover because of the time travel, obviously, but we went to a birthday party at someone's 30th birthday, and something happened that actually gets covered in the book. And one of my friends said, oh, wouldn't it be weird if something more kind of sinister was going on right now? We went back to this lodge and no one could see us or hear us, and we were banging on the door and we were like, whoa, what if something strange happened? And the very next day I got home. Usually you just move on from these things, like, you know, you have conversations with your friends, and I started writing for the first time, and before I knew it, there was a story, and I sort of fell in love with the premise, you know, and that's how it got started.
Cool. And do you have any questions about Restarters?
I have a very important question.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Do you find that premise sounds more like a verb than premise?
Oh, I do.
That's like the whole, yeah. Object, subject. It's where the accent is, yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. I completely agree. And that was one of the things when I started writing was all of these vernacular quirks I realized I knew nothing about. And I was like, I need to study this stuff. So there was a lot of research and a lot of learning and stuff like that. That was fun. Said nobody ever, but yeah.
So what's the latest installment in the series?
The next installment, it comes out next Friday, actually. It's the end of book one. It kind of ends on a bit of a cliffhanger, but it's also a kind of self-contained story, so you can leave it there if you wanted. But I wanted to explore, book one is very much about good people with the ability to change time and whether they should, and even if they can, and what the ramifications of that are. And with book two, I wanted to explore what happened if, spoiler territory, what if a bad guy, the antagonist, had all of those abilities? And what would that mean if someone without a conscience or without the desire to do good, without any worry for how it would affect other people, how would they change time? And what would the new world order look like if a bad guy came along and started messing with the timeline and stuff like that? So that's the premise of the second one. And I hope people enjoy it. I'm really looking forward to it.
So you say that's March 22nd it comes out?
Yeah, March 22nd, like 6 days. So
Yeah. By the time this audio publishes, it will have already come out. So by the time the audio comes out, you can just go get that book right now.
That's just maths. That's just time travel.
We time traveled this.
Woo!
It's in the future, but also in the past.
It was all part of our amazing plan. That was brilliant. It worked out really well.
Wow, incredible. It's funny because you say time travel, I keep thinking of, I don't know if you've seen The Good Place. I don't know if it's popular.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I love The Good Place.
Okay, so Jeremy Bearimy.
Yes.
Yes.
What does the dot stand for? Tuesdays. And the third week of July. Yeah.
Yeah. Eddie, have you seen The Good Place?
I've seen the first 3 episodes of The Good Place.
Oh, what did you think of it?
That's all right. I could use
It's
more
definitely
Ted
a grower.
Danson.
It does get
Yeah.
better, yeah.
It's definitely stronger once it knows what its identity is going to be, and I think it takes a while to establish that because it's very kooky, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then it gets, once it establishes its baseline, I think you'll really enjoy it. It's really good.
Yeah, maybe I'll check it out again.
But Jeremy Bearimy is a reference to the fact that time isn't flat or circle. It looks like Jeremy Bearimy's name, and then has an I in it. So I'm like, what's the dot over the I? Anyway, so that's just how they handle all like time snafus when you have time traveling stories. They're like, Jeremy Bearimy, nothing matters.
It was such a beautiful way to get around a plot contrivance because it was like, well, that's just Jeremy Bearimy.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, it was so good.
Yeah. So since we're already talking about sci-fi, we're discussing a sci-fi story today. No time travel, or is there? No, there isn't. But
Well,
well,
they at least move forward in time.
that's true. Mm-hmm.
They literally do those things. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's very true.
And they reference things that happened in the past, so it's kind of
Time travel.
Isn't memory the truest time travel?
exactly.
That's brilliant. I'm going to raise my cup. I'm going to raise my cup to that. That's brilliant.
Okay, so this week we read The Hanging Stranger by Philip K. Dick. If you haven't read the story yet, there's a link provided in the show notes, and there's spoilers ahead. So in The Hanging Stranger, Ed Loyce emerges from his cellar after spending the day working on his home's foundation. He heads into town and discovers a corpse hanging from a light post in the town square. He's horrified to discover no one reacts to the body, even after he points it out to them. He has a run-in with the police, who he realizes are not really police and are pacifying him for nefarious reasons. He escapes them. He then sees a dark cone emanating from the top of City Hall and insects flying in and out of the darkness. He realizes these are aliens or creatures from another dimension. He seems pretty, casual when he has that discovery. He's like, makes sense. He then sees human-insect hybrids flying and buzzing around City Hall and realizes they have the ability to mimic humans. He infers they have mind control over everyone else, and they missed him because he was underground. This encourages him because it means that the alien insects are not infallible. He runs home, discovers his family is under their control. His son, Jim, turns into an insect-human hybrid and tries to sting him. He kills his son, Jim. The next town over in Oak Grove, he finds the police and explains what happened in his hometown. The police are also eerily calm about the news. That same evening, Clarence Mason commutes home after spending the day underground in the Oak Grove bank vault. To his horror, he finds a corpse hanging from a lamppost in front of the police station. Ooh. All right.
Plot twist.
That's my summary. Okay.
That was a brilliant summary. It's so true. It's good.
All right, so we're going to start how we always do, which is just how did you like the story overall? And we will start with Sean.
Ah.
Yeah,
I think I've been reading a lot of short stories over the last few weeks, and I'm kind of addicted right now because it's a brilliant way of taking that in. I think it suffers because of how quick things need to progress. So the escalation, which would usually be a slow burn, was very much like, this all kind of happens, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the story. I think that he does a wonderful job of blending genres in a very organic, natural way. How about you guys?
Yeah, Andy.
I liked it fine. It was fine. I guess I came in be like, oh, cool, we're gonna read a Philip K. Dick story, and it had all of the Philip K. Dick elements, but I guess it felt like superficial. It was only one level deep of Philip K. Dick.
Yeah.
I was like, it was good.
Mm-hmm. Well, I really loved it, but because I have been reading so many short stories, whenever there's any deep now, I'm excited because when you read this many short stories, like Sometimes you get stories where you're just like, I don't know, there was nothing there. And sometimes there's really good ones. So for me, this was one of the stronger ones, especially in the sci-fi category. We've read quite a few short stories that were also sci-fi on the show. And the greats are the greats. We liked Isaac Asimov and stuff like that. But then some of the other ones fell apart. And this one didn't, which is what I liked about it. There was something beneath the surface to discover. And to Sean's point, it did progress very quickly. Because it has to, because that's the way the short stories are structured. But the thing that struck me is, you know how like in a novel, a lot of the discoveries that this one character is making would come from other characters. Like he wouldn't make that biblical reference at the end. Someone else would. It all has to come from Ed. That's my favorite thing about this story.
Like that just while he was walking, he's like, hey, didn't I used to read about the Bible? Wasn't that the name of a... Like that was his flight to Oak Grove, spent pondering biblical references for other insects.
Just this walking encyclopedia of knowledge on. Well, I remember this Mayan image from
exactly.
It was a little stretch. It was a stretch. Sure.
Right. Yeah. He's a TV store owner. He's a businessman who's walking around like, oh, this. He sees giant insects flying around City Hall, and his first thing goes, they might be coming from another dimension or be aliens. Like this is not
just like that time the other event that happened at the TV store with the other aliens that happened.
Right. So but that's it's the kind of thing that you in a short story, it's very easy to just sort of elide that, to just be like, you know what, I'm just running with it, because short stories almost always are doing something, or the best short stories are doing something, and what Philip K. Dick is doing here is worth it. It's worth just like having Ed, the hero that knows everything, just run around. And you follow him to get to that point. But what we were saying is it does sort of progress very quickly. He encounters these different pockets of people. So Sean, since you were the one who made that comment, how does the story progress very quickly? What are like those points that he's hitting?
I think I will say that one thing I really did like was how Ed's stress as it progresses, I thought was very believable. That exasperation that you're kind of like, why is no one freaking out about this? And I really enjoyed, it felt quite oppressive, and it felt like you knew that the revelation was coming, and that kept me reading, because I was like, right, okay, so this is that, and this is that. And you guys probably do this too. I was like trying to second guess all the time, which was great, because I love doing that. You're like, well, this is the twist, this is the twist, this is the twist, and it was, it did go. There were a few moments, weren't there? So he's in the town square, and that's a really powerful moment, because you kind of, there's some really good scene set in there, and you kind of get a vibe for the area and stuff, and that was kind of cool, and it felt kind of quaint, and it was like, okay, this is what's going on. And then it was, I don't know, I felt like it was like, hey, we're going to run here, and we're going to go do this, and then we're going to do this. And I did love how his family, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but his family were kind of on board, and that was very much like an apocalypse scenario for me, that your family would be like, okay, man, like if you say this is happening, we're going to do this, which didn't really make sense, because they shouldn't be like, okay, well, let's go. They should just be really chilled and calm and everything like that. But they were like, let's do this thing, until obviously sun comes down the stairs and it all kicks off. But what do you think, Andy?
Was that more of a 1950s husband thing? Or
That's
like,
what I was gonna say. Yeah,
we're gonna leave now. Well, I guess he's the man of the house.
He's the husband. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose from where I was coming from, like me and my other half, we've got this. We've always said, if I come to you and I say this is happening right now, like we don't have time to, whether it be ghosts or zombies or whatever, we're like, you need to trust me and we need to go. We can't be that couple who's like, well, you're being crazy, stop it. So I read it as that, but I do think, you having said that, definitely a 1950s.
Yeah, that's how I read it too. Exactly. Like, yeah, especially because the way that everyone who's sort of mind controlled, it's not like they're behaving in a way that's inhuman. They're all behaving very human. They're all doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing in this small town. It feels small town, 1950s American, a town. Like everyone's just sort of like going to work on their commute. So it would make sense then that 1950s wife is like, okay, if you tell me to get in the car,
I'll just do that. Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, so I like the way that everything was escalating. One thing that didn't strike me though is how quickly he abandoned his family very quick. Like there was no time for like his emotional response to this. It's not like he's like, I'll come back for you. I'll figure out what this is and I'll free you. There's none of that. It's just like, all right, I'm out. Peace out. My son, that might be a problem. I don't know.
He definitely as well. He totally ruled out the possibility of a hallucination. Like, when his son comes at him, I think it would have been a bit like, okay, I mean, he didn't have time to react, but you think he'd be like a bit reluctant to take it to the next step and be like, okay, maybe there's more to this. I suppose he didn't really have time.
Yeah,
it was very much.
Sorry to cut you off, but I'm not that sorry in my heart. Even like second guessing it afterwards, it's you just stabbed your son to death. Sure, you thought he was an alien insect monster. Also, maybe he wasn't.
Yeah, exactly, because you'd have to, if he's so kind of informed on this, you think he'd have to be a little bit like, maybe I'm the problem. Maybe I'm the one that's, especially with the spiral above the, with the insects and everything. You're like, could be you, dude.
Yeah. Exactly. That's the point I was making, where he's looking at City Hall, he sees this, and his first conclusion goes, aliens or creatures from another dimension. He never goes, I need to see a doctor, I have a medical problem, or even just like, oh, this is some weird animal that just sort of evolved, or like he immediately jumps to like the craziest thing, which is why I made that comment of like, he's like a business owner and he's making this leap. But again, because it's a short story, we just sort of run with it. But I think part of what made this such a big leap for me is when he first sees the dead body and everyone being calm, he's like, Ku Klux Klan, communist, fascist takeover, right? Like it's all the normal 1950 enemies. Yeah. So what does that tell us about where his mind is at the end of the story and then how it progresses? Because by the end, he's like, there's a biblical reference to Beelzebub is a fly, right? Like that arc is very quick. So what does that tell us, like just about where he started and sort of where the typical like monsters were, like the enemies of the 1950s, and like where he ends up? I don't know who wants to take that.
Do you want to take it first, Eddie?
I do not.
Okay, then I think that was one of the things for me, because I think that he's so on the ball with what is going down that when he gets to the police, I think it was a little bit of a rookie kind of, oh, thank goodness I've reached you and now everything's cool. And this guy was telegraphing, the full circle point, right? He was like, yes, well, I think that you will you'll find out soon enough why that man's on a tree. I was like, yeah, you sort of think, dude, like play your cards close to your chest and maybe be a little bit more like fit in a bit more just in case, play the game.
And I think that's where it comes down to what the story is about, right? What you just said, which is all he had to do to survive was go to work, go home, eat dinner, and watch TV with his family, wake up the next day, have 2.3 children, and take a vacation a year. Like that's all he had to do to survive. So like that's where I think the greater political or social commentary comes from. If anyone wants.
Did you think the man on the bus was good or bad? It was heavily insinuated that he was a good guy, I think, because he said, I made a mistake. But do you think that the man on the bus who was giving him the eye, like, hey man, like chill, just chill. Do you think he was a good guy, or do you think he was one of the
I don't know. I didn't decide when I read it. What about you, Andy?
Well, yeah, because I guess we have two classes of people. We got people who are just mind controlled, and then we've got people who have been replaced by insect monsters. And he could have been an insect monster. He definitely wasn't mind controlled. Right? So he's either an insect monster or he's a regular person. And I guess, I mean, after you stab the guy, he didn't turn into an insect monster. So that must mean he was a good guy.
Yeah,
that's very good. Not that he didn't stick around, did he? But
no, he didn't stick around.
It was weird because when he's on the bus, he's like, hey, maybe he's like me and he knows. And he went from that train of thought to, I'm gonna stab you just to be sure. which was a bit like, but you were just thinking he might have been on board. So yeah, that was a bit strange.
But that's pretty consistent with Ed, right? He's like, Ku Klux Klan, communist fascists, definitely aliens from another dimension. Trust no one except the police at Oak Grove. They're trustworthy. Like, he was constantly doing that.
Well, I just feel like Ed's perfect like surety of everything really made me think this was setting up a psychotic break.
Yeah.
And
yes.
I felt like the twist at the end was going to be, no, Ed, you're crazy. But that's a little obvious twist. Maybe the twistier twist is only people who were underground got hit with alien mind control rays.
What?
Like, Ed's the only one who went nuts.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah, that would have been cool. But
I had
it
a couple
didn't.
of
It just kind
a
of.
couple of theories. I thought the twist might have been if it was Ed hanging,
Oh,
which-
yeah.
which you know is
Well, that's very time travel-y.
yeah. So I guess that's probably why I was like, this is so going to be him. But yeah, what else did I think?
I mean, it ended up being him metaphorically,
Yeah,
right? It was Ed in a different town.
It's very true. They were all Eds.
Yeah.
They're all Eds.
But I think Ed has to see someone hung, go through this whole process, and then be lynched himself to make the point that Philip K. Dick, I believe, is making here, which is so remember that when he wrote this, lynchings were still fairly common in the United States. And it was sort of one of those crimes that as it happened, people just sort of ignored it and moved on with their lives. And you can still see that happening today with different kinds of crimes that are sanctioned by, or sanctioned either outright or with a nod and a wink by the government, right? So a very glaring one would be like drone strikes, killing civilians abroad, that everyone just sort of moves on without looking at very carefully. So there's this sense in like, because like, what are these evil aliens actually doing? Like at the end of the day, you get to live your life. You get to have a job, have a home that you own, raise your family. You just can't react to their atrocities. That's it. And there's a way in which that doesn't actually feel very different from the world that Philip K. Dick is criticizing, the world that we all live in. I think that's the greater point. It doesn't actually feel that different.
I get you. I think that the message was a little bit about highlighting sort of not being content with the way the world is and being afraid to speak up and what that means if you do. And I dug that because I did sort of feel that was a message for me that I took away from it. It was about something not being right and being willing to put everything on the line to say this is wrong and this should not be the norm. And then obviously he was punished for that. But what was their purpose really? I mean, they were letting people just live their lives, you know. I mean, they weren't really, you know, mean aliens, I guess.
Well, and that's my point. Like, he makes that biblical reference and he's picking an evil demonic creature from the Bible. So it's the sense of they are evil, they are wrong, but they've been here forever and we haven't noticed it. So it's part of the human condition where it's like, we've always lived with these authoritative insects that as long as you follow a very sort of normalized path, you're okay. And as soon as you say something that they're doing is wrong, then you're on the outs. So he's sort of every outsider who ever criticized the in-group. So I think it's very important that the hanged man in Pikeville, he doesn't recognize as an outsider. And when he's hung in Oak Grove, he's an outsider to Oak Grove. So it's that outside-inside group. That's why I really liked it. I was just like, he has to die at the end if that's the comment that you want to make, which is more political.
And he did.
And he did.
He did.
And he did.
What did you guys think of the being underground thing? So as long as you're underground, you're like totally safe. It didn't specify whether it was a house structure, but you had to be really kind of below the surface, I guess, didn't you? That was the...
Yeah. Well, I guess, I don't know if Anais is probably going to throw some metaphor, but that, you know, it just seems like it was a good shorthand for him not having to specify what kind of radio waves took over your brains.
I mean, the metaphor is there if you go with the thing that I said, which was like, as long as it's like underground dissidents, like literally like the Samizdat, like people like writing like their little papers that's only circulated amongst like the, you know what I'm saying? Like it's just like hippies or whatever, people who want to rebel but haven't actually brought their ideas to the mainstream and just keep it all underground, it's fine, right? But as soon as you come above the ground and you're interacting with the in-group, now you better not be promoting these ideas. That's when it's dangerous.
That's very deep.
Coming in with metaphors.
That was very good. Boom, metaphored.
Metaphored, yeah. Yeah. Because I think there was a point as I was reading it, the way that I got here was like, I was just like, all he has to do right now on the bus is stop looking like he knows what's going on. Like, that's all he has to do.
Just mind your business.
Yeah,
Mind your business,
exactly.
son. Yeah, exactly.
All he has to do is mind his business and he's fine. He can go to Disney World next year.
Yeah. They won't be allowed to have any fun, but they could totally go to Disney World. Just be like on the rides. Just
And like, we sort of take it for granted that, of course, the aliens taking over City Hall. That's, if you're going to assume a position of authority over everyone else, that's where you would attack. But there's no reason why it has to be there, right? Like, they could, it could be, their ship crashed in the forest and that's where their hub center is. Like, it could be anywhere else. We've seen it in other sci-fis and other places, but this one does that thing where it's like, they take over the White House, right? They take over City Hall. And when you do it that way, I guess it's just me. Like, that's my tip off. I'm like, it might be a political thing because it's not a crash ship.
I get you. Because why would they care about the structure of the society that they're trying to? Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, you're all powerful insects and you're pretending to be politicians. There's an advantage to that. And what's the end result here? Everyone gets to live their lives as long as you can kill a person here or there. Like, as long and who are you killing? People who aren't conforming, right? That's it. That's it. Yeah. All they're doing. Killing the nonconformists.
And you'd have to assume that what they're really doing is sort of potentially stopping wars as well globally, because as long as you're conforming, you're kind of left to this thing. And so there's a bit of an ethical quandary, I guess, as to whether their way is the better way. That's
the problem with the short story is we have to start inferring like what is their ultimate end game, and that doesn't come up here. Right.
Yeah. I think interestingly, did you know that they did a TV adaptation of this, which I haven't seen, but again, I thought it was interesting because of the insight it might give us to the intent of the story. It was they called it "Kill All Others," and that was the name of and so the idea was that this. I don't know. I haven't seen it, but it's basically a guy's watching TV, and in between the news, flashes of "Kill All Others" comes up on the screen. And I was like, that's kind of interesting because obviously I'm assuming that the idea is that Ed will see that and be like, whoa, what's that all about? And so it could just be another baiting situation. But I found that interesting that it was almost like they were giving an instruction to kill all others. And I don't know. It was kind of weird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, in that one, it seems to be taking the if you're going full throttle with my political metaphor here. With that one, it's kind of like the role of propaganda, right? Like the othering of the out group and, the tribal mentality of the in group. But I forgot what I was going to say before that. Andy, it looked like you were going to say something.
Yeah, I didn't have any particular response to respond to. I just had thoughts.
Yeah.
And I guess, so this was an early Philip K. Dick short. It was from like 1953. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I just wanted it to be a lot more. Once Philip K. Dick got crazier, he wrote a lot more crazy things from the 70s when he was getting pink beams from space, from God with ideas. Like that guy would have. It's like if he had written the same story in the 70s, that guy still would have instantly recognized what was going on.
Right.
And known it was aliens. But then halfway through, he would have found out some other crazy thing. And then there would have been like, oh, but you're an alien. And then, you're double twist. And
that's true.
And then
it may have been Ed then at that point.
Right. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean though. Yeah, I think it would have probably twisted a bit more, I think, for sure.
Though I think it still has the Philip K. Dick. It is like an early, like before his point of view or his idea have fully fleshed out, because a lot of his work has to do with the way that reality is illusory. You don't actually really see reality the way that you think you do. Some of that's in here. Because if these insects have always been around and the reality that we think we've been in control of had actually been governed by this external, almost godlike alien dimensional creature, then it's not as we understand it. And Ed is piercing the veil. Ed's seeing beyond that, right? So it has some of that. And it also has that idea that he sometimes has, I can't think of a great example, but like where the thing that's evil that's supposed to manipulate society isn't manipulating much. There's not much substance there to manipulate, right? Like not much.
Yeah, it's definitely not as insidious as
right. Yeah. Exactly.
as
So
the protagonist thinks.
Yeah, and he still throws in weird early biblical references.
Mm-hmm. He's into that. Yeah,
but it's like baby Philip K. Dick.
It is, like, but isn't that exciting?
Baby's first Philip K. Dick. It's like, hey, if you wanted someone to read Philip K. Dick but not to go crazy yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, start with this kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but I that's why I like it, actually, because, like, yeah. I've read, like, 3 of his novels. My favorite's probably still Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, because it's crazy. It's nuts.
Which 3 have you read?
I think it was that one, Man of the High Castle, although that one I read, like, a long time ago, and I don't remember much of it, and then I started watching the Amazon Prime remake of it, and it was not that good. And Ubik. Yeah.
Oh, so you didn't read Phallus?
No, is that the best one?
Well, it's my favorite one.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, anything else you want to add, or do we feel like we've exhausted the story? What about writing style? Did it feel consistent with his later writing style, Andy, man who's read a lot of Dick?
Yeah, and again, like, it's written by a man who's done fewer methamphetamines than older Philip K. Dick. But yeah, it's consistent, like we were saying. Like, it really builds a tension, it builds dread, but it keeps everything moving forward. I like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like his stylized thing where when he wants to surprise you, but he doesn't want to give away the surprise is coming, he just has the thing happen. So like, in the middle of a car, he just had dialogue and he rolls out of the car. Like
yeah, that was
yeah. That's very Philip K. Dick, though, isn't it? Because he's like, if he has Ed think, oh, these guys aren't actually cops, I don't recognize them, then you know he's going to try to escape. So he just escapes without you realizing that he's suspecting anything. So it's just like out of nowhere, like, and he rolled out of the car. Cool.
Well, I also read it as like it only occurred to Ed that instant. It's like, aha, just as I instantly recognize these are interdimensional aliens, at the end of this conversation, I'm like, you're not real cops. Out.
Yeah. I did like the line when he was where he's crouched behind this fence in a pool. What was it? I think there's a pool of scummy water. And I was like, you just kind of imagine he's just chilling there, just kind of like, oh man, what do I do? I've got it. We'll go to the police station in another town because my town is so important that no other towns would have been hit first, because this backwater town is going to be the alien invasion, like apex.
Yes. Yeah. This is the hub. First strike, take over random town.
Yes. Yeah. My TV store. They're after my precious TVs. That's what they're.
Yeah, the town square that has a little patch of green. Also, there was a lot of things that were just. There was another point where he just like does something and then explains later why, and it's that not trying to lose that shock value, but it was kind of funny. Like it made me think like it's very Philip K. Dick. Yeah, and that's a trick of writing action sometimes. Like when you're trying to write action, it's difficult to not overly signal what's about to happen, so you still have some element of surprise on the reader without confusing them. So it's tricky. Yeah. Okay.
I like how just before we go, it's how their rationale was he's clearly drunk or he's sick. He needs a doctor. And that was kind of interesting to me. They're clearly all still thinking independently. Like they're trying to rationalize his actions from the standpoint of this is just something hanging from a tree, man. Like what's the big deal? You know, and so it's kind of interesting that the hold over them doesn't seem to be as nefarious as Ed's thinking. You know, he's just
and like I mean, one of the lines was well, the town council wouldn't let it there if it wasn't supposed to be there. So it was innate trust of authority. Like that's the mind control. Trust the government.
Yeah, definitely. And even Ed was like, well, I mean, sure, it's a dude hanging from a tree. He's pretty cut up, but if the government says it's okay.
Right. Like, who signed? Someone must have signed off on this. You
That's very true.
can't just hang things in the town square.
It's not how the world works. Yeah.
Even though they don't have an actual explanation, right? Because remember, later, Ed's thinking, when he's pretending to be taken in by the cops, and he's like, oh, there's an explanation? That's great, but no one's actually giving him an explanation. And after he rolls out of the car, one of his thoughts is, one, he didn't recognize these cops, and he knows all the cops because to be a business owner, you have to know all the cops. And
That's the
two,
law.
yeah. And two, no one else gave him an explanation. So there's no way everybody's in on this, or else they would have said what it actually is. So it's just a blind trust that there must be an explanation. I don't need to know what it is.
And also, like you pointed out, that's a very good point, because he's like, hey, these cops seem suspicious. So I'm gonna trust some more cops. It's been proven that they're untrustworthy. They're in on this whole thin shindig. And then he's like, but you seem trustworthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you see it as a sort of, allegory for the way society's operated at large, and if in this very story there is the idea that these insects have always been here at all times, then there wasn't a sudden wave that overtook everybody. It's just the act of going underground. You come up and now you're woke because they've always been here. So it wasn't like something happened while he was down there. If his explanation of, remember that biblical reference, is true. So you go underground, you learn some things, and you come back out metaphorically.
Yeah.
Woke.
I definitely felt like that was more of a, now that you've said that, I feel like it was a bit of meant to be a mic drop moment. It's like, these things have been here since the dawn of man. That was,
Yeah.
and it was kind of cool. I dug it. But yeah, I think you're right. It's very much like, oh, and if we put this allegory in there, then it makes the reader think, oh, how long has this been going on for? And is this the last city or little area that's going to be taken over? And how far has it gone? And yes, that's a very good point, actually. I didn't think of that.
Yeah. Okay. Andy, anything else to add?
No.
Okay. Let's do our ratings. So, Sean, you've listened to a bunch of episodes, so we do ratings from 1 to 6, which is a weird scale. But so
we don't conform. We don't literary Roadhouse. Yeah.
We don't. It's literally because Ray Bradbury wrote more than 600 short stories, and I was like, we call it Bradberries instead of like stars. It's one of 6 Bradberries, so it's a Bradbury for each 100 stories he wrote.
Nice. I like it.
Okay. So from 1 to 6, how would you guys rate it?
Andy, you want to go first?
I would give it a 4.
Okay. It's pretty low. All right, fine. No, it's fine. No big deal.
It's better than 3. That's what's important. I just wanted it to be crazier. I came in with such high expectations. I was like, oh, Philip K. Dick, this is gonna, and like it only twisted once.
Only once. It kind of twisted twice. Twist number 1, the big obvious one, is he ends up dying in the end, I guess. And the other twist is it's been here forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like, I don't know.
They're the same twist.
I came in expecting them to have been there forever and be some weird biblical reference.
Yeah. So for you, not so much a twist as expected. Continue.
Yeah. What you got to check off all the weird things. Like, when you're going to reference early Christianity and Gnosticism. Like, good, you did it.
Okay, Sean, for you.
This is tough, actually. I was leaning towards a 5, but now that I don't know, Andy's given me the green light for a 4, I feel like can we do half pointers, or is that cheating?
Yes, you can do half points. Yep.
I'm gonna say 4.5. I really enjoyed it. It definitely made me want to get back into some Philip K. Dick to read some more, which I guess is the sign of a good short story. And I dug the style. I think some of the dialogue was a little stilted, but I think that's more a sign of the time than anything else. The twists, I agree. I kind of wanted a little more at the end. I really wanted that. I wanted to be wrong about something. I wanted to be like, oh no, I got it over. And I didn't have that moment. So yeah, I'm going to say 4.5, I think.
Okay. And I'm torn. I think probably a 5. Yeah, it's probably a 5 for me. It's definitely not a 6, because 6 is when I start screaming at random people who must read the story right now. I didn't get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you must read the story. Everyone should read the story.
You go full on Ed. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and 5.5. Yeah, I don't know. It's a 5 for me. It's really good. I thought it was great, and people should read it. But it's not a shot from the rooftops type story. So we now have to choose next week's story. So each of you will submit a short story that we're going to read next week, and I'm going to lead a little game, my favorite format. But first, submit the stories that you guys want to submit. Andy, what are you submitting?
I will submit Color and Light by Sally Rooney.
Okay. And Sean?
I'm going to submit Bread and Wine by Michael Chapman.
Okay. So, this is my favorite format. Longtime listeners will know, which is I'm going to make a statement about Philip K. Dick, and you have to tell me if it's a fact or if I made that up. Very simple. So,
what could go wrong?
Yeah, it's my favorite thing. And I was telling Andy in the pre-show, I'm upset that neither Gerald nor Rami are here because Rami hated this because he hated, for some reason, being wrong on this specifically, even though he's wrong all the time in trivia games. This bothers him the most.
This broke him, sort of thing. Oh.
Yeah, he would be like, "Why are you so good at lying?" Okay. Yeah, and Gerald would just tune out what I'm saying and just listen to how I'm saying it to become this like mental game between us where I'm trying to like trick him. It was just very funny.
Nice.
Okay, so start with Sean.
I'm excited.
Yes. Yeah. So, Philip K. Dick first tried to adapt Anthony Burgess's A Clockwork Orange for the screen, but his screenwriting skills were so piss poor that Stanley Kubrick, who would later direct the film, avoided Dick at social events for a whole year to avoid having to tell Dick the truth.
I want this to be true so bad, but I don't think it's true, but I want it to be.
It is false. Good job. I made that up.
It was really good. It was so like it was the little nuggets at the end. That's what got me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Andy. Dick was born with a twin sister who died a few weeks after his birth.
Oh, yeah, that's super true. 6 weeks.
All right. Wow.
Whoa.
Andy knows. Okay. Sean, in 1974, he developed a mental illness that led to hallucinations, and he became obsessed with the hallucination of a woman at his door wearing a fish-shaped gold necklace.
Whoa. That is oddly specific. I'm going to say true.
True.
What?
Yep. Andy, you might know this one since you know everything, but the K stands for kindred.
Yeah, that's also true.
Okay.
Wait a minute.
I didn't know you knew everything about him. Okay. Sean, Philip K. Dick collected mirrors.
Oh my goodness. False.
It is false. You guys are onto me.
Whoa.
Andy, an airline worker lost his head. Fans had made an android, and it got lost in the mail. The head got lost in the mail.
That was a sentence?
An airline worker lost Philip K. Dick's head. Well, the head of an android made in his likeness by fans.
Oh. Yeah, I believe that. Actually, that's true.
That is true. You guys
What?
are 3-3. All right. I kept it short. So that's totally true. And then years later, a robotics company donated a new one. Okay. So here's one done. How many? Andy, you have a leg up on everything. All right. Tiebreaker. So you're just going to guess a number, and whoever's closest wins. How many novels did he write?
I'll let Andy go first.
9.
Okay. Sean?
I don't want to be that guy that goes one higher or lower. So
be that guy.
Be that guy. We do it all the time.
Yeah, no, I can say, how many novels? That is tough. I'm going to say 11.
Sean is closer. According to Wikipedia, it's 44. 44 novels, 120 short stories, and 14 short story collections.
Whoa, that was crazy because I was going to say 42, and then I thought I'm just going to look like a crazy person. So
No, you were so close. 44. Yeah.
Oh,
And that's
I
what
just
speed does.
yeah.
The drug. Yeah.
I thought it was all short stories because I knew he didn't write novels for like 6 years. He just went radio silent on everybody.
Mm.
oh wow,
Yeah. Okay. So
he was busy.
Sean won despite the fact that Andy is a Philip K. Dick biographer.
By pure dumb luck, but still, I'll take it.
So what are we reading next week?
So this is a story by, because I'm an independent author, I thought I'd try and pick an independently written short story. And it's a story named Bread and Wine, which I'll provide the link for, by Mike Chapman. And I'm going to be reading it with you too, because I've read a few pages of it and I really liked the way it was going. And so I'll be reading along with you guys as well.
Great. You can send in your thoughts. Actually, we have a voice recorder on our website, and if you want to leave a comment in voice, I'll plug it into the show.
Okay.
Yeah. And that also is true for our fans, in case anyone's forgotten. Okay, so before you go, join our literary hive mind in our Facebook group, The Literary Roadhouse Readers, or leave your thoughts on Twitter at LitRoadhouse or our website, literaryroadhouse.com. Are you craving a full-length sci-fi novel? Join the Literary Roadhouse Book Club, where we discuss a novel each month. We often choose stories that straddle literary and genre, like Black Leopard, Red Wolf by Marlon James, who recently published that discussion. And lastly, we need tinfoil hats and body armor to protect us from the insect alien invasion. Support our paranoia and podcast expenses at patreon.com/literary roadhouse. Every bit helps. And as always, share this podcast with the bureaucratic insects governing your life. Until next time, read a good story.
Read a good story.
Yeah.